The average American household is worth over $1 million. Sounds ridiculous, doesn't it? Because if that's true, why doesn't your bank account feel like it? Why do almost none of us feel like millionaires? Here's where it gets interesting. That number isn't fake. It comes straight from the Federal Reserve, but it's also one of the most misleading statistics in the entire American economy. By the end of this video, you'll know where you actually stand, not where the headlines say you do. And chances are, it's nothing like you think. But first, let's break down the number almost everyone gets wrong. Let's start with the number everyone gets wrong. It comes from the Federal Reserve's own survey of consumer finances, not a blog post, not a hot take, an actual government survey of American households. The average net worth of a US household? $1.06 million. Sit with that for a second. That means statistically, you're surrounded by millionaires. Your neighbor, your coworker, maybe even you. Does that match how you feel about your own finances? For almost everyone watching this, the answer is no. And that gap between what the statistic says and what your bank account says isn't a coincidence. It's a clue, because there's a reason this number feels like a lie. Here's what almost nobody tells you when they quote that statistic. An average isn't the same as normal. Imagine a room with 10 people. 9 have $10,000. 1 has $100 million. Suddenly, everyone in the room is worth over $10 million on average. Nothing changed for the other 9 people. That's exactly what's happening when you hear the average American household is worth over $1 million. The average isn't lying. It's just telling the story of a country where a tiny number of people pull the statistic far away from everyone else. That's why economists rely on another number, the median. The household sitting exactly in the middle, with half of America richer and half poorer. Here's the real benchmark. Median household net worth, $192,900, not $1.06 million, roughly 1/5 of it. That single gap, average versus median, is why so many people read headlines about wealthy Americans and think, that doesn't sound anything like my life. And they're right. So where do you actually fit? If you're under 35, the typical household has around $39,000. In your late 30s or early 40s, around $135,600. Midlife climbs closer to $250,000 at $247,200. Near retirement, roughly $364,500. Somewhere in those 4 numbers, you just found the real scoreboard. There's a comment that appears under almost every video like this. Finally, someone is talking about median instead of average. That reaction tells you something important. Millions of people have spent years feeling like something about these wealth statistics never quite added up. They weren't imagining it. They just didn't have the language to explain why, which leads to the question almost nobody asks. If the median tells the truth, why does every headline lead with the average instead? Who's pulling that number so high? And just as importantly, who disappears when we use it? Let's meet both. First, there's the Henry, high earner, not rich yet. On LinkedIn, they look like they've made it. 6-figure salary, prestigious job title. Friends assume they're doing great. Then payday arrives, and 2 weeks later, they're checking their bank balance before ordering takeout. Next comes the house poor couple. Together, they earn about $120,000 a year and have a net worth around $200,000. Sounds comfortable, until you realize roughly $190,000 of that exists only as home equity. Their balance sheet says they're building wealth. Their checking account says they can't afford an unexpected repair. 1 broken furnace, 1 leaking roof, 1 emergency, and suddenly the credit card comes back out. Then there's the gig worker. Income swings wildly from month to month. Student debt keeps growing. Their net worth is actually negative, even though they may be working harder than almost anyone else in this story. They didn't lose because they were lazy. They didn't lose because they stopped trying. The math simply never gave them much of a chance. And finally, the phantom millionaire. A retired teacher who bought a modest house decades ago for around $80,000. Today, it's worth more than $1.2 million. On paper, she's a millionaire. In real life, she's living on a fixed pension, watching property taxes climb, and she couldn't tell you the last time she actually felt rich. Sound familiar? None of these people fit the stereotype. They're working, saving, paying bills, making what most people would call responsible choices. And yet they all end up asking the same question. Why does it still feel like I'm falling behind? If the problem isn't them, what is it? Because the answer isn't hiding in a spreadsheet, it's hiding inside the way we think about money, compare ourselves to everyone else, and follow rules for building wealth that quietly changed long before most people realized they had. So, why does it still feel like falling behind, even when nothing about you is actually broken? Part of the answer isn't in your bank account at all, it's in your brain. Psychologists have a name for it: social comparison theory. We don't judge our lives in a vacuum, we judge them against the people around us. That's always been true. What's new is the scale. 50 years ago, the people around us meant neighbors, co-workers, maybe a few relatives. Today, it means a curated highlight reel of everyone you've ever met, updated every time you unlock your phone. Nobody posts their mortgage statement. Nobody posts their credit card balance, so the comparison isn't even fair. You're measuring your full financial reality against everyone else's edited trailer. But even if social media disappeared tomorrow, something strange would still happen. Even when you actually get ahead, it rarely feels like it. There's a term for that too: the hedonic treadmill. A raise feels incredible for about 6 weeks. Then the new salary becomes the new normal. Spending quietly rises to match it, and the feeling of progress evaporates. You're running faster, but the scenery never changes. Remember the Henry from earlier? 6-figure income, empty savings account? This is the mechanism underneath that contradiction. It's not that they're bad with money, it's that the finish line moves every time they get close to it. And your own brain isn't finished making things harder. There's a third force at work, and it might be the sneakiest one. Behavioral economists Kahneman and Tversky prove something that sounds obvious once you hear it. Losing money hurts roughly twice as much as gaining the same amount feels good. That single asymmetry, loss aversion, quietly shapes millions of financial decisions. It's why people keep cash sitting in an account, earning almost nothing instead of investing it. It's why a market dip feels like a crisis instead of a normal Tuesday. Your brain isn't malfunctioning. It's doing exactly what it evolved to do. It just wasn't built for a modern economy. So if this is happening to almost everyone, is it really a personal failure, or is something bigger going on? Because your brain isn't the only thing working against you. The rules of the game actually changed. Then something bigger happened. The rules quietly changed, wages slowed, housing exploded, pensions disappeared, retirement risk shifted onto individuals. Assets kept getting more expensive. If you already owned them, you got richer. If you didn't, the ladder kept moving farther away. So exactly how uneven did it get? The answer is more extreme than most people realize, and once you see it, you can't unsee it. Picture a stadium packed with everyone in America. The bottom half of the crowd, 50% of the country, is standing on the ground floor. Combined, they hold about 2.5% of all the wealth in the room. The middle class is up on their tiptoes, straining just to see over the row in front of them. Now look up. The top 10% aren't standing in the stadium at all. They're sitting in elevated chairs, holding roughly 90% of every stock in the building. When the market has a great year, it's mostly their year. The top 1% isn't even in the stands anymore. They're on a private platform, 10 feet above everyone else, holding close to a third of the entire room's wealth by themselves. And the top 100th of 1%, they're not looking at the stadium from a seat, they're looking down at it from a skyscraper next door. Here's the number that makes it real. Right now, 57% of Americans couldn't cover a surprise $1,000 expense without going into debt or selling something. Not because they're irresponsible, because the ground floor of that stadium is more crowded than it's ever been. So, does that mean the game is rigged? That building real wealth is basically impossible unless you're already standing on the platform? Not exactly. And before you write off the whole system, it's worth steel manning the other side, because the loudest arguments against everything you just heard aren't entirely wrong either. And a video that only tells you what you want to hear isn't honest, it's just comfortable. So let's steel man the other side. People are richer than previous generations. That's actually true in one sense. Phones, cars, flights, entertainment, by almost any measure of consumption, life today is more comfortable than it was 50 years ago. But comfort isn't the same as security. You can have a nicer phone than your grandparents ever dreamed of and still be one missed paycheck away from disaster. Consumption tells you what people can buy. It says nothing about what they actually own. People just spend too much. That's why they're not building wealth. This is where the conversation usually goes off the rails, because the people saying this aren't completely wrong. Lifestyle creep is real. We already talked about that. Some of this is genuinely about choices, but choices don't happen in a vacuum. Try telling someone they spend too much when rent has outpaced wages for 2 decades. When a 4-year degree costs triple what it did in the 90s. When a single ER visit can erase a year of careful saving. Personal responsibility matters. It's just not the whole story. And pretending it is lets an entire economic shift hide behind an individual's grocery receipt. Anyone can become wealthy if they just save and invest early enough. Also true for some people, the FIRE movement is real. People do retire in their 30s and 40s on disciplined saving and smart investing. It's possible. But here's the distinction almost nobody makes. Possible isn't the same as probable. Yes, someone can climb from the ground floor of that stadium all the way up to the platform. It happens. But it happened to him isn't proof the system works for everyone. It's proof the exit exists. It doesn't tell you how narrow that exit actually is or how many people never even find the door. So where does that leave us? Not with blame, not with excuses. Somewhere in between, which is exactly where the truth usually lives. The goal was never to tell you the system is rigged or that your choices don't matter. The goal is to understand reality clearly enough to make better decisions inside it. Which brings us back to the question this entire video has been circling since the very first sentence. If income isn't wealth, if the average number was never the real scoreboard, if the rules change and your brain is wired against you and the playing field genuinely tilts uphill for most people, then what actually makes someone wealthy? Here's the simplest way to picture it. Imagine a bucket. Income is water pouring in from the top. Expenses are leaks along the sides. Some small, some you don't even notice until the bucket's half empty. Wealth isn't the water pouring in. Wealth is what's still sitting in that bucket after everything else is drained out. That's it. That's the entire difference the last few minutes have been building toward. Not how much water pours in. What's left over time. Look back at everyone you met along the way and suddenly their stories make perfect sense. The Henry has a fire hose pouring into that bucket and a dozen leaks draining it just as fast. The house poor couple didn't just fill their bucket. They welded most of it shut, turned it into a house, and can't pour a single drop back out when they actually need it. The gig worker's water comes in unpredictably, in bursts, while debt quietly drills new holes faster than they can patch them. And the phantom millionaire? Her bucket looks enormous from the outside. On paper, it's overflowing, but almost none of that water is liquid. It's frozen solid inside a house she can't spend, can't easily access, can't turn into groceries or gas or peace of mind. 4 completely different people, 4 completely different incomes, and the same invisible force deciding how wealthy they actually are. Not what came in, what stayed. There's a line from author Morgan Housel that captures this better than any statistic in this entire video. Wealth isn't built primarily by intelligence or income or even opportunity. It's built by behavior. Suddenly, the Henry, the house poor couple, and the retired millionaire all make sense. They weren't playing different games, they were losing water from different buckets. That single idea rewrites everything you thought you knew walking into this video. Wealthy was never about the number on your paycheck. It was never about the house, the title, the highlight reel your feed keeps showing you. Wealthy is what's left when the noise stops. The resilience, the cushion between you and catastrophe, the freedom to absorb a bad month without it becoming a bad year. So now you know what the number actually means. You know why it felt like a lie. You know the difference between income and wealth, between the average and the median, between what people show you and what's actually true, which leaves one question left to ask. Not, am I behind? That was never the right question. It was a wrong scoreboard from the very first sentence of this video. The real question is simpler than that and a lot more useful. Not, how much do I have, but how much can I keep? Because that's what wealth actually measures, not the number that flashes across a headline, not the salary on a resume, not the size of a house or the model of a car parked outside it. Wealth is the water still sitting in the bucket after life has finished pouring itself in and draining itself out. Remember that opening line? The one that started this entire video? The average American household is worth over $1 million. That statement is still technically true. It was true the entire time you were watching. But now you know what it's actually made of. You know it's an average, not a median, inflated by a small number of households sitting so far above everyone else that they distort the picture for everyone below them. You know the real number, the one that describes an actual household in the middle of America, is closer to $192,900, not 1 in a million. 1 in 2. And you know that number isn't the finish line either. It's just a more honest starting point. So here's the part almost nobody does after watching a video like this. Go find out where you actually stand. Not the vague, uneasy feeling of probably behind. The real number. Pull up your age bracket from earlier, under 35, 35 to 44, 45 to 54, 55 to 64, and compare it honestly. You might be exactly where the data says you'd be. You might be doing better than you thought. Either way, you'll know something you didn't know 10 minutes ago. Where the real scoreboard actually places you, instead of the one built from headlines, highlight reels, and someone else's highlight reel of a house they can't actually afford either. Drop your bracket in the comments if you're willing. Not the number, just the range. You'll notice something interesting almost immediately. You're not the only one who was surprised, but there's a bigger question sitting underneath all of this, and it's the one this video was never built to answer. If the bottom half of that stadium holds 2.5% of the wealth in the room, what would it actually take to climb even one row higher? Not the platform, not the skyscraper next door, just one row. That's a different video. A harder one, because it means asking why the middle of the stadium started disappearing in the first place, and whether the ladder up is still where everyone assumes it is. That's next. For now, you know something most people never bother to find out. Not what you're worth on paper, what you're actually keeping